This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is August 29th, 2022. If you have not been listening to the show for the past few weeks, you don't know what today is, but if you have, you know it is Luke Sylvia's birthday. Luke, what up, bro?
Thank you. Big 26, so exciting times. Not really, but did have a nice little siesta key getaway. Shout out to my buddy Ryan Jackson, his family. They happened to be there while we also had like a maternity shoot scheduled there with a photographer. So they were like, yeah, just stay with us. And they had like this nice house and siesta key. Don't go to that side of like those like beaches very much over there on that side near the Gulf, but it was a good time. A lot calmer wave action. But yeah, it was good. And we did a little family dinner last night, as you guys are listening to this today, with my family. Had some nice steak, some potatoes, like mashed potatoes, basically. Little peppers on top, like red peppers, yellow peppers, and garlic bread, all that fun stuff. So it was a chocolate cake type of top it off. Man, it was a good birthday. It was good for being just, a 26th birthday.
Well, I grew up in the Gulf. That was my first like introduction to a beach. And I was like, oh, these are waves. And then I saw the Atlantic. I was like, all right, those are waves.
Yeah.
The Gulf is, we refer to it more as like a toilet bowl because it's just kind of stagnant water. It moves a little bit, not a lot, but that's what I grew up in. I love the Gulf. You can't see the bottom. Once you get a little, 5 feet out there, you can't really see the bottom anymore. But it is what it is.
This is the last thing I'll say about this. But I don't know if I'd been out like to the Gulf, like ocean at all. We always go to the Atlantic side, like New Smyrna, Daytona type area. I never have had an issue with the ocean, like fear, none of that. We went out to the ocean today, and me and my buddy
go out to the ocean. You went out to the Gulf.
Oh, sorry, the Gulf.
It's not the ocean. It's very different.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I went to the Gulf.
Real ones know.
And we're like waist deep at this point, maybe a little more than that. And I'm just staring out into the Gulf, and it is just like eerily calm. Like I'm just standing there. I'm like, dude, I've never had any type of fear of like water, but if anything were to do it, it's this. It's like the calm before the storm type of thing. And then you start thinking about the depths of the ocean or the Gulf, and you're just like, man, that stuff that's scary stuff.
Yeah, the ocean has always scared me, always. Like,
but it has the Gulf,
all that kind of stuff. The Gulf always, because you can't see the bottom, and that's what is the scariest part to me. Is when I cannot see the bottom, I'm done. I don't want to go anywhere else. When I was in Bahamas, a couple weekends ago or whatever, you could walk out like waist deep. It's crystal clear. I had no issue with that at all. When I cannot see the bottom anymore, that's when it's a wrap. When I cannot see what is in the water and I don't know how deep it is, I'm done. That's just me.
Yeah.
Speaking of fears, people that were afraid of drafting Chet Holmgren number 1, a little early to feel validated, in my opinion. That's a heck of a segue. You got to give me some props for that. It
was a good segue. It was a little aggressive, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. Chet Holmgren has suffered a Liz Frank injury. I don't know how to pronounce that. I think it's Liz Frank injury to his right foot that he apparently suffered during the crossover game when he was guarding LeBron. He kind of comes up hopping on that foot a little bit, not putting any weight on that. Then we got news, I think it was like Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, that the Thunder were concerned that he tore like a ligament or had some ligament damage in his foot. And then Thursday, the news came out that he tore his had a Liz Frank injury, tore that ligament, and is going to miss the entire season. And all of the people pre-draft who had questions about his frame and is he going to be durable, like to me, it's too early to be like, I was right. But you're like, I wasn't totally wrong. See, this is what I was afraid about. And it just really sucks for Oklahoma City. It sucks if you're a basketball fan. And I really would have been distraught had that happened to a guy that we drafted. And I'm going to knock on wood because you never know what's going to happen. We're going to talk about some injury bad luck that we had this week. But yeah, Chet, done for the year.
I don't. I'm not convinced it's frame related, man. Like, I'm really not. I know that there's people out there that are going to say that it is, but part of it is because they want it to be, because they're sick like that. But I don't think, and they want to be right so bad. But I just don't. I'm not convinced. I said it on the last episode that if this were the case, then people can act like they know what they're talking about, and we're going to talk about with injuries with the Magic, obviously Gary Harris, but we'll talk about that. But the thing is like, I'm going to be very clear in the fact that, like, I know next to nothing when it comes to injuries, the history of injuries, what players had what injury and how long they were out for. Like, there are people who genuinely know that type of stuff, that can just like rattle off like, oh, I remember when this player had that. I don't know any of that. I don't know anything in the medical field at all. So if y'all want to chew me up in the comments, please do that if I make any mistakes about injuries, and timetables. But yeah, I just don't think I don't know. But from what I've seen, it looks like this could just be a freak thing, but it also could be related to weight, frame. I have no idea. It's just really unfortunate at the best, the bottom line. Really sucks. Like you said, if this was like Paolo, like, that would be just heartbreaking, really. But just for the, you want a player so bad to be good. OKC has been kind of walking that fine line, in terms of like rebuild, and like they've had to do that the past couple of years, but now they've got so much young talent, and it's like, man, you got to put away your most talented, maybe. Obviously, SGA can be debated, but like one of your prized possessions out for the whole year really stinks. We've seen it. We've seen players go out for a year, more than that, come back looking fine. Joel Embiid being one of them, the one that comes to my mind when I think of injury trouble to start the career. So hopefully he's good. I was really bummed to hear that. I wanted to see Orlando and OKC on TNT on November 1st with Chet in the lineup. Finally get that matchup, but it looks like we're going to have to wait another year.
Well, hopefully we still get the game on TNT, like, at all. I know people have talked about, like, oh, can they flex a game that early in the season? We don't really know. I think somebody said the Heat and the Warriors play that night, so I'm sure if the NBA and TNT can flex that game, they will. So we'll just be kind of watching that.
I think that was producer Kevin who pointed that out to us.
Yeah, so we'll just be waiting patiently, or somewhat impatiently, I rather probably should say. But hopefully that game doesn't get flexed. But it does suck, for Chet. It sucks for Oklahoma City fans. It sucks for us who wanted to see that matchup. But I think there is something to, like, these tall guys with these crazy frames, and we've just never seen guys be able to move like this. Like Kristaps Porzingis comes to mind. Our Jonathan Isaac comes to mind. Now Chet Holmgren, like guys that are this tall, just moving the way they're able to move. It's just almost like these ligaments aren't supposed to like stretch and move the way that these guys are moving in these kind of frames. But like you said, I don't really know about any of that stuff. I just know it sucks that Chet got hurt.
Yeah.
And just hoping that he recovers soon. Hope he still has a long career. And you hate to see that happen to anybody. Apart from Chet, just want to check in again with our boy Franz Wagner, as he's been playing in some FIBA World Cup qualifiers over the course of the last couple of days. As we go back to the other day, Germany playing Sweden. Germany wins 67-50. Franz Wagner, this is going back to Thursday. Franz Wagner, 16 points, 5 assists, 2 blocks. And then Sunday morning, played against Slovenia. Slovenia featuring Luka Doncic. And Slovenia was favored in this game heading in to the matchup. But Germany comes out on top 90-71. Franz Wagner, 16.7 rebounds. And my understanding is, I wasn't able to watch this game. We were driving back from Orlando. But my understanding is that he was guarding Luka for decent stretches of this game. And nobody's going to completely stop Luka, but did a pretty good job on him. So super excited about the way that Franz has played so far in the friendlies and then in the Super Cup and now in the World Cup qualifiers. And coming up on Thursday, September 1st, Germany will be taking on France in their first game of FIBA Eurobasket 2022, featuring our good old friend Evan Fournier and, of course, Rudy Gobert and some other guys
Bald
that have
Evan
played in the
Fournier, by
NBA.
the way.
Bald Evan Fournier. Shout out to Evan. It's been going for him for a while. Ever since he bleached his hair blonde, started to lose it a bit more. He used to have like the ponytail and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he just finally embraced it, shaved his head bald. Is he going to stay bald? We don't really know. We saw LeBron do this a few years ago, but is still, holding on to his hair, even though he really should just go bald all the way. But yeah,
Yep.
Evan bald, the big bushy beard he's rocking. So, but it'll be a good matchup. We know that FIBA Fournier is a very real thing. We've seen France, beat the U.S. in some of these international competitions. So we know they are a formidable foe. So it'll be exciting to see Franz, and some of those other guys, Dennis Schroeder. We'll see I don't know if Daniel Tice has been ruled out, but I know he's missed a couple of these games. We know Mo Wagner is out. We know that Jalen Suggs and Cole Anthony were in attendance on Sunday for the matchup against Slovenia. So that's really cool. They were in Germany doing some stuff for Adidas, I think, but stuck around to see that game. So always good to see all those guys together. But yeah, we're going to be looking forward to Franz versus France on Thursday. Luke, some unfortunate Orlando Magic news broke yesterday pretty early. I want to say like around, was it like 10:30? We got news that Orlando Magic veteran guard Gary Harris suffered a torn meniscus. I want to say it was in his left knee. It was in one of the knees for sure. I can assure you that. But the torn meniscus, I think Luke is really, dove into the recovery time and stuff like that for the meniscus, so I'll let him talk about that. But it's really just a big blow for the Magic. I don't know if it was Luke or Kevin that tweeted from the Six Man Show account, but I tweeted like right after that. It's like, can we get one freaking year where we're just healthy? Like this, we need to see everyone healthy this year, so that we can get a fair evaluation of this team to see what we have and who we need to move, and decisions are going to need to be made in this offseason, and Gary Harris is a big part of that.
Yeah, it sucks. And some people were talking wild on social media. Some people were like, Gary Harris like doesn't affect it that much, like doesn't affect this team that much. And it's like, we talked about this when it came
Open your
time,
eyes,
right?
watch the game,
Right.
Stop saying stuff out of your blowhole.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the fact that like we talked about it on the show. You had mentioned it. I think especially early on in the summer, you're like, you take a look at this team, the spacing isn't awesome. You need to bring back
terrible
shooting. So you need to bring back Gary Harris, who, led the league in essentially one of the corner shooting percentages last year as one of like the best shooters from that corner, or the best shooter from that corner, I should say, last year. So that's spacing, and that is something that the Magic need. And just so many people were talking about that, and it's just ridiculous. But I will say, your initial Google, like I said, I am a novice when it comes to this. So I was Googling. I was like, meniscus tear, probably something that a lot of Magic fans were doing, honestly. Meniscus tear recovery time for athletes. And a lot of it said 4 to 8 weeks. You've had some athletes that are back in 4 weeks when they have a meniscus tear. You have some that get some type of repair, some surgery done, like Zion, and he was out 9 weeks. And then you've got Colin Sexton, who got injured November of 2021, and then it was released a couple weeks later that he's going to be out the remainder of the year, will need surgery, that sort of thing. So just seems like it varies. And you guys kind of clown me because I was like, Gary Harris, do we expect him back in like 4 to 8 weeks? You and Kevin were both basically like, no. You said I was optimistic. And then you said, yeah, but do they have like a search for what if they play for the Magic? And it's a valid concern because we know how the Magic, are very cautious. I don't want to use the term baby them, but they are very cautious, like maybe overly cautious, but they're cautious, better than being quick to bring him back. But that is something you have to think about with Gary Harris, especially if Gary Harris is out for like 8 weeks and they have a decision and they haven't announced anything, because I have a very hard time believing the Magic are going to announce when he's coming back. Some teams list timetables. This organization tends not to. So I do wonder, the Magic have a kind of a rough, being away from home, basically the first 2 weeks of the season, those sort of things. It's not like an easy schedule at any point during the season. It's all pretty evenly difficult for the Magic. So those first couple months are going to be interesting to see what happens, because if it's a rough start, I won't be shocked if we see that Gary Harris is being like ruled out for this season. It would suck. I hope that's not the case. I hope the Magic are crushing it. I hope at that point the Magic have played their TNT game on November 1st. Paolo's balling out just in general. The team is doing well and meshing. Then they can bring Gary Harris back. I hope that we get to see him play this season.
Well, so I'm going to go back to the most recent reference that I have in terms of, kind of directly dealing with a guy who has a meniscus tear. I'm going to go back to a high-profile free agent that the Orlando Magic signed a few years ago, Al-Farouq Aminu. Okay, so they signed him in the offseason, in between the 18 and 19 season. They bring him in for the 19-20 regular season. He had just had a good playoff run with the Portland Trailblazers, and it was like, okay, we're bringing in a veteran, give us some more depth at the forward position, who has been a quality starter on an NBA playoff team for quite some time with the Portland Trailblazers. So he plays 18 games, in the first season. Last played for the Magic in that season on November 29th of 2019. So if I remember correctly, he had the meniscus tear, and they tried to rehab that without surgery. And then throughout the rehab, he had a setback, and then they deemed that the meniscus tear would require surgery. So again, the last time we saw him when he went out with the meniscus tear was November 29th, 2019. And he came back, this is February 17th of 2021. So missed about, what is that, like 15 months with a meniscus tear. So I'm not overly optimistic when it comes to Gary Harris. Now, in no way am I saying they are directly correlated or even the same kind of meniscus tear,
Right.
because we haven't had any additional information from the Magic outside of the fact that it was a meniscus tear. I don't even think the Magic have mentioned whether or not it's going to require surgery. I think he's going to go through like further evaluation, I think is what the press release said, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's basically out indefinitely. We know nothing.
Right, exactly. So producer Kevin is sending us some stuff from Dr. Brian Sutterer here, just saying that like meniscus tears are just kind of, there's a spectrum, like whether or not they're going to require surgery and
They're not all the
how
same.
bad they are. They're not all the same. Exactly. So right now we're just kind of in like a holding pattern, like a wait and see with Gary Harris to see what happens. But people that are saying that this doesn't really affect the Magic, you are just like, when it comes to basketball, there's like nuance, and you can be, having different opinions, but you're not necessarily wrong. If you think that Gary Harris, this is not going to impact the Magic, you are just flat out wrong. 100% wrong, clear as day, crystal clear, you are wrong. Gary Harris last year in 61 games started 30 for the Orlando Magic, averaged 11 points per game, shot 38% from the three-point line. Now, Luke, what I want to do here for our listeners is to show them, yes, he started off the year really rough last season in terms of shooting, but just how hot he got as the year went on. Started October in 4 games, 22% from the three-point line. Then in November, 12 games, 24%. So through 2 months, this guy was at 23% from the three-point line, ended up the year at 38%. In December, 43%. In January, 39%. In February, 41%. In March, 40%. So the numbers, if you look at the year for Gary Harris, they don't even do him justice, even though he finishes at 38%. But you start going down the line in terms of guys hitting threes last year. Gary Harris led the entire team at 38%. 38.4%, let me add. 5 attempts per game. Second on the team at 4 attempts per game, Mo Bamba, 38.1%. Then third, Franz, 35%. RJ, 35%. So those guys we had 4 guys last year at league average. Then you have Cole at 33%. Robin Lopez is listed here. Admiral Schofield. Those guys really didn't take a ton of threes, so I don't necessarily count them. But then you have Mo Wagner, 32%. Wendell, 32%. Chuma, 31%. Terrence Ross, 29%. And then Jalen Suggs, 21%. So Gary Harris and Mo Bamba were pretty much our only above average 3-point shooters last season. Mo Bamba out of the starting lineup. He's going to be in a backup role. We had discussions about who is going to start at the 2. Is it Jalen Suggs? Is it Cole Anthony? A lot of people thought it could be Gary Harris. Those are all arguments can be made for either of those guys. And now without Gary Harris, like the spacing on this team, especially in the backcourt, is incredibly, I don't want to say thin. I'm going to say it's non-existent. Like this team has almost no spacing without Gary Harris on the floor at this point. And we've been talking about Terrence Ross being traded for basically a year now. And the Gary Harris injury changes that a little bit for me. Especially early on in the year, I think we're going to see Terrence Ross in an increased role, more than we probably thought he was going to be in to start this year. And we are going to need the Terrence Ross of old. Last year's Terrence Ross is not going to cut it. We need like 2019, 2020 Terrence Ross. This flat out sucks. It's really bad for the Magic.
This is going to just to add, as if we need any more context to how good Gary Harris was, really the last, more than half of the year from from 3,
like 80% of the season, how good he was.
Yeah. So, and to give more of context, we know how bad he was those first, 15, 20 games, basically. His last 45 games of last year, he shot 41.3% from 3. So gives you an idea for the fact that he ended at like 38% or whatever it was. It does make me wonder, Jonathan, if this increases our chances of seeing like just an all-length NBA lineup for the Magic this year. Because what else, like what can you do? This will give Bol not finally, but a chance at some minutes here, right? With the if Gary Harris is out for an extended period of time, you bring in and you just have a massive lineup that comes out there just to essentially fill the spot of Gary Harris. And it sucks. I mean, like you said, it does make you kind of change your tune about Terrence Ross, what his future holds. I'm glad that Terrence Ross seems to be in good spirits about this team because I think we're going to need him. He's going to be very much needed. I don't know, man. That as far as like people were talking about Gary Harris, not many, but people who were thinking just in terms of spacing, talking about Gary Harris, like you said, starting. Do we now start to have the conversation of, well, if it's not Gary, is it Terrence Ross, and is he finally is he gonna start the year? I don't know. If you look at this team and the starting lineup that they've got with the 0 spacing, at that point, I mean, you could say, no, we want to roll with the lineup that we all think it is due to development of guys like Jalen Suggs. But then you think about, if you want to win, you just throw Terrence Ross out there at the 2 to start the season and just say, maybe he just gets going early and he holds that position until Jalen maybe shows that he improves, that his offensive game is caught up to his defensive game. I don't know, man, but this makes it very odd with Gary Harris's injury. I hope that it's very minimal, and I hope we don't have to play too much tinkering with those lineups. I also, for the sake of like our sanity, hope that Gary Harris isn't out very long, because we're going to get tired of seeing how clogged the game looks and how little spacing is. Paolo's going to think he's back in college playing with little spacing. And I would love to see Paolo thrive in a true NBA concept and schemes. We will see.
So for me, this really becomes just a complicated situation for the team and for Jamal Mosley in terms of the decisions that he has to make in regards to the starting lineup. Because and I guess we can have this conversation because so much of the NBA is like a player's perception. So like Terrence Ross, right? 29% from the 3-point line last year. Every time he was in the game, predominantly with the bench unit, he was just smothered. Like they wouldn't give him an ounce of breathing room because even though he wasn't shooting well last year, the perception is still you cannot let this guy get hot. Like we saw him win games, like maybe one or two games single-handedly last year. I think he had a game like against the Knicks where he went crazy in the second half, like 24 points. I could be mixing up the game, but Terrence Ross is still capable of doing that every once in a blue moon at the very least. When it comes to Jalen Suggs, my question is, he didn't come into the season with the perception that he was a non-shooter, right? Like he was confident, he was taking the shots. It wasn't like they were just leaving him completely wide open. As the season went on, maybe that changed a little bit. But has the perception around Jalen Suggs changed that now they think he's a non-shooter and maybe he needs to prove that all over again? Like let's say even if Jalen has like a great offseason and comes in and is a real shooter, until he proves that he's going to knock down those shots, the spacing may not be there. We might have 20 games to start the season next year where the paint is clogged and Jalen Suggs is just getting wide open 3-pointers, and it's going to take a while for teams to catch on if he does improve before that perception changes, and that's when the spacing really opens up. So it's not even so much just like the results right away. It's just like other teams' perception of the guys that we have on our roster. And because of that, I think the Gary Harris argument was valid when he was healthy. The Terrence Ross now argument, I think that's valid as well if you're really concerned about the spacing. And if we had a Patreon exclusive Zoom that we do once a month, and our patrons, we will shout you out. Don't think that we forgot about you, my sweet, sweet children. But we had an exclusive Zoom with them, and this very conversation got brought up, but this was before Gary got hurt. And the conversation was, well, if the Magic's number one goal next year is no matter what, we want to win games, then you probably start Gary Harris from day one. Now, if it's like we do really want to win games, but development is also really important, then you plug Jalen Suggs into the starting lineup. And now we're going to find out where the Magic are valuing this season. Because if it's from game one, you want to try to win, you're really concerned about spacing, maybe you start Terrence Ross. But I think a lot of us, our initial reaction seeing Gary Harris go down was like, all right, Jalen Suggs should start opening night. But the more I talk about this and the more that I think about it, I really don't know what they're going to do. I do not envy Jamal Mosley in the decision that these guys have to make, in the next month or so as we go into training camp.
Yeah. I don't know what to expect here, man. I really don't. I guess we will just see if the team surprises us and actually gives us some solid injury updates when it comes to guys like Gary Harris and Jonathan Isaac. I really don't know.
Are you ready for some good news?
I want all the good news.
Before we get to the good news, we're going to shout out our patrons. If you have not heard, or if you've been living underneath a rock for the past year, we started a Patreon. A Patreon is just simply where you can partner with the show financially, subscribe to one of 3 tiers that have multiple benefits associated with them, where you can help us do the things that we do. You can find us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. We're going to shout out our Hall of Fame tier patrons like we do every episode. But before we get to that, we have a very, very, very special brand new patron, Luke's mom, Teddy Sylvia.
Right.
Shout out to the real MVP. Without Teddy, we literally would not be here right now, especially Luke.
That's true. That's true. Especially me. That for sure. We were doing actually our Patreon exclusive Zoom meeting, and Kevin just starts cracking up, and I was like, dude, what are you laughing at? And he's like, sorry guys. He said, we have a new patron, and it's Luke's mom. And at first I was like, oh, ha ha ha. But then I remembered my mom has said several times, well, can I do it? And I was like, no, like you don't need to do that. Like I don't need you to do it. We have to like shout you out, and like I just don't, it's my mom. And she's like, well, let me do it. I was like, no. So this has been happening since we started the Patreon. When I told her we started the Patreon, I keep her in the loop. She's a Magic fan and knows more about sports than a lot of people that I know. So yes, Teddy Sylvia, my mother, the newest patron of the Six Man Show.
Real MVP. Thank you so much, Teddy. We really, really appreciate your support. And we are going to throw you in with our Hall of Fame tier patrons that we shout out every week. And we'll go ahead and start that right now with the Court Cousins, Armin, Carson Tulo. What are we doing, Carson? You went from Lil Tulo to Elite Tulo. Now you're Carson Tulo. You're really trying to throw me off here. I don't appreciate that. Shout out Carson Tulo, Jonathan Borges, Norm L, Magic Player History, Bailey Wiffle, Michael Salapong, Ryan Singh, The Distract, Pierre A, Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Lil Penny, Drum, Danimal, Duddo15, Bobby Skinner, Nate Donley, Goody 93, and then Teddy Sylvia, the real MVP. We appreciate everyone's support so much. Again, if you want to support the show, you can find us at not the Six Man Show. You can find us at thesixmanshow.com, but you can also support us at patreon.com/the Six Man Show. Now, the real good news that we were talking about. I'm driving home from Orlando today. Took the kids to Disney with some friends of ours. They invited us out there for the weekend, and we're driving home with the kids. And my wife is just going through Instagram, and she sees that Jonathan Isaac just posted to his story. She follows him on Instagram. You know, she goes to his story, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Jonathan!" He posted like a video of him like in the Magic practice facility, and I look over and I see him take this drop step and just head at the rim and just yam, like with authority. And I yelled, "Whoa!" And my kids are in the back like, Daddy, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. I'm like, Jonathan Isaac is playing basketball. And my oldest, you know, we had the privilege of meeting Jonathan about a year ago, and she remembers him to this day. And she's always like, "Are we going to Jonathan Isaac's house?" And I'm like, "No. Like, what in the world would ever make you think that we would go to Jonathan Isaac's house? Absolutely not." But yeah, she just was concerned about Jonathan Isaac. But Jonathan Isaac looked great, moving well, no knee brace, exploding to the rim, looked comfortable landing. The fact that he feels confident enough to post footage like that, again, without the brace, we're essentially a month away from the start of training camp. Luke, I'll ask you before I give my take on this. Did you find it significant? Is this anything?
I think it's anything. Ring the bell, because I was thinking about it, and I obviously saw the clip and was thinking about it. I said, he like you said, head at the rim, just punches the ball through the rim. You're not going, like, if you are injured and you are taking it easy, you are being still acting gingerly when doing these things. You're doing maybe a casual dunk, but it looked like he's like obviously getting to the point where he has ramped up enough to put 100% effort into that dunk at the end. Something as small as that, right? Like the ability, the effort at the rim. It just made me feel like it was promising. Like you said, enough to post it. I just think that it is something. I think that he. I think he's gonna be back. I'm doing it to myself. I think he's gonna be back opening night. The lights are bright, and Jonathan Isaac checks in for the first time since the bubble.
And the Amway
it's gonna
Center
be electric.
erupts. It would be electric.
Yep.
I hope I'm in the building. I hope we get some kind of advance notice. I will do whatever I need to make sure that I'm in the building for that. I do think it's significant because of the fact that he posted it. Like, people want to talk about his, political views or perceived political views anyways. All the other things that he does, like related to his book and all that. And, the fact that he rarely posts about, basketball or anything like that. So for him to say, like, you know what, like, I've been out for, it's 2 years now. It's more than 2 years at this point, and I'm not wearing the brace. I'm working out. That he feels good enough and confident to post that. To me, it is significant because it's just kind of outside of what he would like normally do, even when healthy. So, and he looks really good. He looks like he's put on weight. He's put on muscle. He's kept the muscle on. He's still moving really well with the added weight. And the fact, like you said, just like with authority on that dunk. That's not something that you do if you're not really feeling confident in your body just yet. So I've been just stung and burned too many times to say, like, yeah, he's definitely going to be back opening night. I would love to say that, but it feels like he should. Like, just given everything that we have witnessed and everything that has gone on with this injury, feels like he should be ready for opening night. If he's not, that is going to be such a bummer and just going to add to the fuel of the fire of people being concerned. Remember when people thought like he would never walk like normally again? Remember when we dealt with that
I
last
feel like
season and
I
he'll
feel like
never
we bring
play
that up a
again?
lot, and rightfully so, because that was wild.
It was wild. It was silly at the time, but man, people just freaked out about that. To see him doing that, it's like, all right, he definitely can walk. He can jump. I'm assuming he can run. But the next thing for me, and we probably won't hear anything between now and training camp. That's just kind of the way that it goes with this team. But I would love nothing more than to see him or to hear that he's participating in full court activity and full court runs with his teammates. To me, that would be the last thing that I need to know to say, all right, we are good to start the season with Jonathan Isaac. Now,
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of newer fans to the team, like even in the last couple of months, since drafting Paolo Banchero, people that are Duke fans or really followed Paolo very closely at Duke and are now paying attention to the Magic, or people that just knew we were terrible the last 10 years and weren't interested. And now that there's all this hype and promise around this young team, people are now getting interested. So for those of you that don't really know about Jonathan Isaac, so he was drafted, I want to say in 2017. I believe it was 2017. He was the 5th overall pick, I believe, in that draft. Luke's going to look that up for me right now.
Sixth, by the way.
It was 2017.
I just looked up.
Right?
It's 2017.
2017, the 6th pick in the draft. My goodness. That was like 2 months, I believe, after we hired Jeff Weltman and John Hammond. So he started off, rough rookie season. Was out with like an ankle injury, but the second season was like a key piece in the Magic being a top 10 defensive team that year and helped us get to the playoffs. But the following season, the 2019-2020 season, really just started off. The kid was honestly just incredible. In that season, before he got injured, through 34 games, he was averaging 11 points per game, 47% from the floor, 34% from the three-point line, almost 7 rebounds, an assist, a steal and a half, but 2.3 blocks per game. And then on New Year's Day of 2020, he has this like weird, like kind of Euro step around Bradley Beal, where I think it was like originally like a hyperextension and a bone bruise. And then, a couple of months later, he's still out, but then the whole league gets shut down. They say that he's not going to play in the bubble when everybody came back for, COVID. And then right before the exhibition games start, they say Jonathan Isaac is going to play. And he's playing with this massive, bulky knee brace, but he looks incredible. I think we saw him play in 2 games and he tore his ACL in the third, or he tore his ACL in the second game. I don't remember exactly what happened, but that was August of 2020. And he missed the entire following season, missed all of last season as well, suffered the hamstring injury like around March somewhere in the other leg that I think required some kind of surgical procedure. So we have just been waiting for Jonathan Isaac to come back for 2+ years, because when he got hurt initially at the beginning of 2020, was a legitimate Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And a guy like that, if he comes back and is the same type of defender, it's going to drastically alter the trajectory of this franchise. It's going to impact us immediately on the floor. And then what we saw of him in the bubble was an enhanced offensive game, was getting to the rim, finishing, was hitting threes. So if we get bubble JI, then things really start to change for this Orlando Magic team. But because it's been so long, that's why we are so apprehensive. Well, Luke seems like confident he's going to be back opening night. I don't think he's that confident, but that's the optimist in Luke, I think.
No, I'm that confident. Guarantee.
Really? Oh, great.
Yeah, I am.
Perfect.
Because, and unlike Barkley, I think I'm going to be right. He posted this video. I think there is a lot to him posting this video. He, let's be honest, does not post a ton of basketball on his Instagram and hasn't really, it's just never been his thing to just post basketball stuff. And so the fact that he posted it, it makes me confident enough to think like, okay, dude, like it has been long enough. You've had your time. Let's start fresh. Let's start the season with you on the court. But I do have a follow up. My follow up question for you here is how many games or how long will it take you to not just like be tense the entire time Jonathan Isaac is on the court, fearing everything at that point?
I'm gonna go with never.
It's never going to go away.
Uh I get worried every single time one of our guys goes down. And I think it'll
Yeah.
be heightened with JI. Like every time he goes down, I'm really gonna be concerned because we just missed so much time with him.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I'm at the point where I've just been traumatized enough. Legitimately, every time a guy goes down and doesn't bounce right back up, I fear the worst. Kevin
Well,
and
yeah.
I were at the Miami Heat game in December when Wendell went down and left the floor in a wheelchair. And it
Yeah.
just seemed like, okay, here we go again. Now, he only missed, I think, maybe less than a handful of games before he came back, and we dodged a bullet there. But every single time one of those things happens, I just think the worst.
Yeah, it's hard not to. And I honestly, my knee jerk reaction to the answer to my own question was, if he can make it a whole year healthy, then I think it'll ease some of my anxiety about him being on the court and injury happening, right? But then I thought, no, because if he is fully healthy and he is making a drastic difference in this team on the court, then I'm gonna be just hesitant and nervous all next year as well. Of like, oh, is this too good to be true? Like he's really back? Is he really back? And then next season, I'm just gonna be. I just feel like I'll probably feel the same way because I'm like, this can't end. Like we can't, like you can't make me wait again to watch this guy play. And now that he's made these huge strides at this point in this hypothetical universe, I'm just nervous, you know? So I think I'm with you on the whole never thing. I wanted to say, give me one healthy season and it'll be fine. It'll be normal. But I know that heading into the next year, I would just be very anxiety filled.
All right, well, I changed your mind, and now you've changed my mind.
Okay.
Because this next year is going to be like so irregular for like what would be a normal NBA season for a player, because we assume he's going to come back off the bench to start the year. He's probably not. He's probably going to have a minutes restriction for quite a while. He's probably not going to play back to backs for quite a while. So if Jonathan Isaac ends up playing like 60 games next season, like without any kind of setbacks or hiccups, I think that is a successful year.
Yeah.
Now, if he goes through that fully healthy, and then he gets through like another season mostly healthy, like 70 plus
Right.
games, maybe there's like a little minor injury here where he misses a handful of games, whatever. If he gets through 2 seasons, that will bring me back to baseline for everyone else. That being said, my level of concern for injury is always very high. So like
Mm-hmm.
bringing back to baseline isn't like, oh, I'm just not worried about it at all. It's just like I won't be as worried as about him. I'll just be worried about everyone equally. And again, every time someone goes down and doesn't bounce right back up, I can't breathe. I start sweating. It's like, oh, here we freaking go. So,
Yeah.
and that was my reaction when I got the notification on Saturday about Gary. I was like, here we freaking go again. We cannot
Mm-hmm.
win.
Yep.
So,
Valid.
hoping to see Jonathan Isaac back night one. That would really be
Would be a
fantastic.
dream.
It would be. All right, Luke, I think that is going to do it for us this week. Anything that we're missing? I feel like I'm missing something, but I don't remember what it is right now.
I don't think so.
I know what
think
it
we
is. You came
Okay.
to this episode expecting us to talk about forwards, but because we had so much other news in regards to Gary Harris and then today with Jonathan Isaac, we decided we're going to have more than enough to talk about with those two guys. We're going to push for the group of forwards and kind of evaluating that whole position for the Orlando Magic to our episode, which is supposed to come out this coming Thursday. So unless
That is
something else,
I was going
right,
to say, unless something more pressing comes to mind, because that's an evergreen episode leading up
right.
to the season, that is. So that's something you can hit play on at any point leading up to the season. So, yeah, I'm with you. We hopefully nothing out of the ordinary happens. unless it is a statement about Jonathan Isaac being back for opener.
Unless it's good news. I can deal with good pressing news. That'd be great for once.
Good pressing news that can fill an episode all about it.
Right.
And pushing back that forwards episode again. But I'm excited to talk about, forwards. Then we'll get to guards after that with all these caveats pending. But we will, we'll get, you'll hear from us on Thursday. That's what we're saying.
That's going to do it for us. For Luke Sylvia, happy birthday. This has been Jonathan Osborne. You guys are listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!